Good evening and welcome to another episode of the Hotspot, the show that brings you the hottest news as it is happening. I am your host, Oratile Dolamo. Now, crime happens every day in South Africa and foreign nationals are being blamed for it, more especially Nigerians. Do you think Nigerians are guilty as charged, or they are the true victims in all of this? To answer that, we have in studio today with us Honorable Cosmos Eche, the acting president of the NCWC, and Honorable Ebire Grace Joseph Akunwa, public relations officer of the NCWC. Now, what is your take on the discrimination and false information against foreign nationals, especially Nigerians?
Thank you very much for having me. My take on the discrimination and false allegation against Nigerians is that it should not remain, it should not stand. It has a very negative impact on the relationship between Nigerians and South Africa and cannot continue. The sources of this false information should be closed down on, because what they are circulating are information that is detrimental to the relationship that Nigerians and South Africans should have.
That is very accurate, ma'am. And what is your take on discrimination or false information against Nigerians?
Thank you. Well, to the best of my knowledge, I think majority of Nigerians in South Africa have been able to conduct themselves very well. And I think part of the allegations that we see has to do with a stereotype, and I also think that as Nigerians, as South Africans, and as the public, everyone has a responsibility to play, a role to play in all of this. This is what I think.
Thank you so much. Now, see, there was a statement issued by the NCWC denouncing the voice note that circulated around WhatsApp where 2 Nigerian nationals kidnapped and raped 3 schoolgirls in Tableview. Nigerians are constantly portrayed as criminals in the news and on social media. How does this affect their image as Nigerians, not only in South Africa, but worldwide?
Thank you very much. Concerning that incident, I think we as Nigerian Community Western Cape, we actually issued a statement that went out, concerning that WhatsApp that went viral.
Yeah.
And part of that statement came because when we heard that, we actually went on a fact-finding mission. We went to Somerset Police Station to find out if it was actually true. And what we got was that there was nothing like that. And we also went as far as neighboring SAPs. We went to Gordons Bay, we went to Makassar, and a couple of those places. And there was no case of kidnap. There was no case of kidnap. People were not arrested for kidnap. And then also from Somerset Hospital, we actually went there. We sent emissaries there as well, and they came back to us that there was nothing like that. And the statement was issued to that effect. So I think that has been dealt with. And like I said, it's a stereotype thing. Yeah. Once person does something, the turn is attributed to Nigerians. So that's it.
Now, could the expressive nature of Nigerians be mistaken for rudeness or aggressiveness?
Well, looking at Nigerians and the way we comport ourselves and the way we speak, one might want to mistake that Nigerians are a bit aggressive and a bit rude, if you want to say that. But I think it all has to do with the environments we've come from. We come from an environment where there's a lot of hustling and bustling, and that gets to affect our mode of communication. Apart from that, I don't think Nigerians are actually aggressive. They are not. It's just our mannerisms in the way we speak, and that's it.
Yeah, and you just emphasize on the words and stuff. It's nothing to do with aggression. Can we blame the inability to get proper legalization from Home Affairs so they can engage in legitimate businesses?
Well, that can be considered as a factor that can affect the foreign nationals. Considering the fact that the country we're in, there is very scarce resources available to even the nationals. And you can look at that to say that if those who are actually locals that are having whatever it takes, the documents needed to get employed are struggling too. How challenging is it for the foreigners who are actually not legalized, are not given documents that they need in order to be able to operate? So these people get pushed to the corner. They find themselves in some kind of pressure, and you cannot tell what a man under pressure or a woman under pressure may result to. So it might happen that some of these foreign nationals that may engage in illicit dealings are led into it by the fact that, one, they were qualified individuals, experienced individuals, but seeking to have legalized documents to operate in their area of expertise, but they don't have it. And they find themselves pushed to the corner. And when a man is tempted, you don't know what. So I could give it that them not being legalized, not given help by the Home Affairs, could also contribute to some of them engaging in some of these illicit activities.
Which is very true. Why are only Nigerians perceived as drug dealers in South Africa? Are they the only foreigners who are involved in drugs?
I would say that maybe there is no statistics available that actually could conclusively say that Nigerians are the ones mainly into drug dealing. We get the news every day. You hear that maybe in an overpack, drug dealing was busted, and the news will have it not being a Nigerian. But the fact that from time to time you hear a Nigerian caught in drug dealing does not mean that it's majorly Nigerians that are dealing drugs. So it would be a wrong perception for anybody to believe that Nigerians are majorly into drug dealings. There are also Nigerians that are employed in the universities, Nigerian doctors. Who is talking about these people? So let's not just focus on Nigerians one Nigerian or two that are found dealing on drugs to say that Nigerians are majorly into drug dealing.
I would also like to hear your take as a mother, as a woman, a Nigerian woman in South Africa, that why are Nigerians the only people perceived as drug dealers in South Africa?
Well, Nigerians per se are not the only people perceived as drug dealers in South Africa. We have other nationals, and like we would always say, crime is not a nationality. We have the good, the bad, and the ugly in every society. And then to single out Nigerians is something that is a bit of a concern to us. And like I said earlier, I think the media, I think we as the public, as Nigerians and South Africa, we also have a role to play in all of these things. So what we do when these things happen, and the information we send across, it matters a lot. So it could either make it get worse, give the wrong signals, and at the end of the day, we might all suffer it.
What can be done to change the perspective people have around foreigners in South Africa?
Well, the perspective people have about foreigners in South Africa can be changed, or it can be worked on if all hands are on deck. Like I said, it would take Nigerians, it would take South Africans, it would take the media and all of these bodies. I also think that if we begin to integrate more with the communities, we'll begin to make more impact and more effect and begin to change what is not so good about foreign nationals.
Thank you, ma'am. If you would like to follow up on the question?
All right. My view on that is that, that today the media seems to be a platform that has great influence on people's mind and perceptions. So I believe that the media houses has a lot to do around this, because the community and the people who are having these perceptions or perspective, as the case may be, about foreign nationals, could be people, considering where the country is coming out from the apartheid, where they were shut down and made not to interact with other nationals. Some of them are actually not exposed to the culture of these other individuals, and they feel invaded in their space. You understand? So the fact that they feel invaded in their space, one needs to start getting them to understand. Everybody needs to play a role. The media needs to start telling stories about what happens in Nigeria. Why could Nigerians or other nationals move down to this country? When they begin to get into the situation of these individuals, somehow some level of sympathy may step in, and if they begin to embrace each other, you find out that these people are not here because they are here just to invade our space. We understand the value that we can all add to ourselves. If we get to know each other, we'll embrace each other, and we share values, and we see what brings us together than what divides us. Then the perceptions will begin to change. So the perception about foreign nationals in South Africa can be worked upon. The media can play a role. The individual foreigners themselves can play a role by get themselves acquainted with the host national. The host national as well can help themselves to change their perspective about foreigners by embracing the foreigners. Some of us that has worked with the locals, I've some South Africans under my employment. Some of them don't see me as a foreigner anymore. We share a lot in common. If I have an event, they will come to my event. If they have an event, I'll go to their event because we've related to an extent. So I believe that integration, the media information can help to change the perspective that is out there about foreign nationals.
You're right. Getting to know each other, we can actually realize that we are the same person from different countries.
Exactly my point. It's a matter of getting to understand ourselves better. We are Africans, by the way. Exactly. There are cultures that we actually share. I also think from the side of the government, if the government or the Department of Culture can begin to develop some cultural events that will showcase the culture of different nationals that are in this country. That will be a way for some other, because there could be people from closer land or the Zulu land that would engage in a cultural event that has to do with somebody from Zambia, for instance, and they'll see that they have a lot in common, and it would begin to change the way they engage. For instance, those who watch African Magic, they learn a lot of things about African cultures that relates to them, and with that, they want to get to know more about Nigeria because they're seeing certain cultures that relates to them. So anything that will integrate us will help to change the perception that is out there about the foreign nation.
Now, given the way that Nigerians are being treated, do you think they've brought this upon themselves?
I would not think that Nigerians brought this upon themselves, but rather the same issue that we are trying to deal with, that when people are misinformed about the next person, obviously they will treat the person based on what they have been informed about the person. When there is a perception out there that Nigerians are criminals, Nigerians are drug dealers, then people treat them as they would treat common criminals. Even when they come across a Nigerian who is actually there to add value to them. You meet a doctor who is a professional in the hospital and he saved your life because of the perception you've had about Nigerians. By the time you hear he's a Nigerian,
automatically you just shut down.
You can imagine that. So they didn't bring this upon themselves. It's not something they caused. It's just that people's mindset has already been conditioned to see Nigerians as people who are
the villain, the bad guy.
Exactly.
Now, if you were South African, would you understand how South Africans feel on this whole thing, this whole matter that Nigerians are bad guys? Would you understand if you were South African?
To be candid, I would feel it.
Yeah.
I would, because first of all, we're humans, and it's all about, you know, getting to understand why people think or do the things that they do. So if I were South African, I would feel the impact. I mean, Cosmos said something about people having come from a journey of apartheid, you know, and then looking at all of those things, people have a mindset. You know, here we are, people coming to compete with scarce resources and all of those things. So I would actually think that, you know, at the back of my mind somewhere that it's not like I'm coming to be robbed of something, but I would have it at the back of my mind that somebody's coming to take perhaps from where they did not, you know, fight or work for. Yeah. But again, it all boils down to informing, you know, the public per se about the contributions, you know, other nationals also made to make this country what it is today. You know, so yes, there has to be a balance. People have to be educated. They have to know where all this is coming from and how did this country then open up to immigrants. So we really have to take these things in good faith and really understand that people are not coming to take what you have. They're not coming to take your women. They're not coming to take your jobs. But of course, it's a democratic setting and it's been opened up to the continent. That's why you have other nationals here, and that is why, as it is a rainbow nation.
And I think we also need to understand that we, as South Africans, we are also immigrants in other countries.
Absolutely.
All right, we'll take a break and we'll continue after this. Welcome back, and you are still watching The Hotspot with me, your host, Oratila Dolamo. Now, to join in our conversation, you can follow our social media pages on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at official CME TV. Going back into the questions, should foreigners be sympathetic to how South Africans feel?
In all honesty, I think, and I believe strongly, that foreigners should be sympathetic to how South Africans feel. You know, I said earlier that we'll always take cognizance of the fact that the South African community or the South African nation has been through, especially the black South Africans, has been through a lot. If anybody that has read the history and understand the trends and legacies of apartheid would know that a man who has been through such a lot is bound to feel the way South Africans are feeling. You know, like I said earlier, that in some cases I might think that they feel that their spaces has been invaded. And if you are a South African and you are still trying to find yourself, and you seem to see that non-South Africans, other nationals who has come into your country, seems to be occupying some spaces that you think you could have for yourself. You know, so it's bound to happen that the people will agitate, and the people will feel that they are being deprived of certain privileges. But the thing is it actually true that the people are being deprived? So we sympathize with the people as foreigners here, considering their situation. But the sympathy does not go to say that their feelings is genuinely what it is. Rather, it is that, and the reactions actually should be justified. You know, so we sympathize with the people and understand where they are coming from and what they are going through. But I also think that in the same breath that the host community should actually, instead of reacting and responding to the way they respond to the foreigners, get to learn something from the foreigners. You know, there is something that as fellow blacks who came into your country, and these foreigners are actually more incapacitated, because in some cases, some of them are not having some privileges or advantages that the locals have, yet they're able to press through. So in a situation like this, you should begin to ask yourself, why am I not doing right? You know, so we feel for them. We also think that they should take this as a challenge and step up. Thank you very much.
Ma'am?
Well, it's interesting, you know, when he said when he talked about, the host community, I'm talking about the nationals, and then referring to black, nationals. We have different kinds of foreign nationals here, and we also have reactions from, different kinds of people within the South African, community.
Yeah.
But I think it has to do more with, people of color per se, and that's where we are, and that's why, when the thing came the way it came, the recent xenophobic attack, the reactions we got from Nigeria, wasn't, for most of us, we would not take, that kind of reaction. You do me, I do you kind of thing, But that was what we got, and that has to, I think, to a large extent, it is because of, the kind of, the color thing we were dealing with, brother thing, on that level, So back to what you're saying, I think that as immigrants here per se, we are apologetic, and in as much as we are and we're sympathetic, we also make an appeal, to our brothers and our sisters here to pipe it low and understand where we're also coming from. When I look at the communities here, when I go to Langa, I go to Nyanga, I go to all of those places, Guguletu and all of those places, what I see there is not too different from most of our communities back in Nigeria. So so I don't think there's much of a difference. There's not much of a difference. And that's why the fight and the competition for scarce resources is there, Yeah.
And before anything, we are black. Before the borders, before the cultures, before anything, we are firstly black.
And Africans.
Exactly. That's what it is, and that's why we should feel for each other. That we are sympathetic with the locals, and the locals as well, to a reasonable extent, should also understand the plight of these foreigners who, most of them, ran into South Africa for refuge, and they did not come here because they really have to come here. They came here because of circumstances. So, and if they could come here and find their feet, like I said earlier, I believe that it should be something that the locals should learn something from.
Exactly.
Thanks.
Now, has the South African government helped with the matters at all?
Well, I should think that the government, like we all know, is an institution, and the institution employees are also individuals who are employed by the institution. So the actions and the roles that the employees of the government institution take should not be taken as the position of the government, as per se. So I would say that the government in itself may have not taken any position that we would think that may have contributed either negatively or positively, but there are some employees of the government institution whose stands and public utterances in some of the instances when xenophobic attack arises, their position and their public utterances has not really helped the matter. They have not been on the side of preferring solution to the situation. Instead, they have added steam to the fire. So I believe that the government as an institution hasn't done much per se, but the employees of the government has not helped, as the case may be.
Now, has the South African government helped with matters at all?
South African government, like Cosmos has just said, government is not an individual, it is an institution. And the institution has its employees. And utterances and actions and things that have happened from that quarter, in the recent xenophobic attacks, it's not been too good. Having said that, I think there's a lot government can do. There's a lot government can do, like we talked about integrating communities. That's something they can actually do, go down to communities, create clusters of groups to interact with different levels of people in the community. And I also think that government can actually put into the curriculum in schools at various levels, what other African countries did when South Africa was going through the struggle and all of that. People need to be educated. We need to know these things. We need to see them in our school books and all that. I say this, and it's important because during the time of apartheid and when the struggle and all of those things, most of my elder ones, people that were seniors in schools, they had to give up their meals and all that, just to be part of all of these things, So people are a bit nostalgic about these things. Everybody has something they're holding on to, somehow. Everybody has a soft part when it comes to this. So we don't like what is happening. We want to be one. This is Africa. Your child is my child. We should live within our space. I mean, there's enough for everybody. We have more than enough in Africa, So there should not be this fight and this friction if government is taking into consideration a lot of things. Like recently, we had a media conference, as part of our independence anniversary celebration, where we actually addressed some of these issues. And most of the things we discussed in that conference, and even before the conference, when they had the World Economic Summit, all of those, I think, informed some of the decision that when our president came and he met with the president here, I think they were able to rub minds along, that line. And I think we expect to see more of these things, within the two relations between South Africa and Nigeria.
What do you think must be done by the South African government to fix this notion?
I believe that the South African government needs to, like Madam Ebere said earlier, that information is power. The information that is available to the common man in the street is very important. And more also, and I said earlier that government is an institution and the employees of the government whose utterances has actually contributed negatively to the situation between the host country and the foreign nationals. The government should actually take responsibility and take its employees into account. If a representative of the government would go to the public and make some utterances that is seen to be influencing the public negatively against foreign nationals, some disciplinary actions should be taken against such government officials. And when that is had, then it will send message to say that the government actually discourages such utterances. But when such things happens and the government does not, and nobody hears that this actually not the position of South African government, that what this person said on the media is not the position of South African government, then that's not helping the matter. So my take is that the government should be able to have a position. The government cannot stand aside in a situation like this. The crisis is brewing in your country. The economic effect of all this affects you as a government. Why do you sit back and do nothing? So I believe that the government, to a reasonable extent, should take a stand. It's either you are secretly sponsoring the crisis, or you are not in support of the crisis and you make it known. Before other African countries to start sanctioning South African government over the recent xenophobic attack, it was because there has not been any strong stand taken by South African government against what was happening. So I believe that the government should make their position and their stand known with regards to the xenophobic attack that emanates from this country from time to time.
And I think Mrs. Ebere was right. Like, it should start from the foundation phase in schools.
Absolutely.
To teach our children. That way they can grow with it in their systems, and we can have a better nation in the future. Do you think Nigerians are good ambassadors here in South Africa? And if so, what are you doing as the president of the NCWC to make sure that Nigerians are good ambassadors?
Thank you for asking. I would say that truly Nigerians are good ambassadors. of the country here in South Africa. But you know that even to every country where you have good ambassadors, you will also find some bad ambassadors. There are a reasonable number of Nigerians here who are representing the country so very well. And we know that there are also a few whose activities and engagements in the country does not represent the good interest of Nigeria in South Africa. As the president of Nigerian community in Western Cape, we've taken an initiative which we consider a proactive one. Even before the xenophobia started, we began to take a tour around Western Cape. We've gone as far as Vredenburg, to Paarl, to Strand, to locate areas where we find our nationals. And we ask them, we bring them together and we talk to them. We try to speak to them and educate them to try and make sure they're being good ambassadors. And what we have advised is that we should begin to police ourselves. This is one of the things I've advised. Let's become, because there's a saying that says that when one finger dips into an oil, it sprays to other fingers. You know, I made the community to realize that the things we're suffering is not something that each and every one of us has caused, but it is a few in our midst. And I think that that's a way that we can deal with these issues. If we find out that one of us is indulging in an activity that may spread and become a problem for the entire Nigerian community in Western Cape, we should call that person and caution that individual. So we are not to condone activities that we see our people get into that is detrimental to our national image. And as well as after the xenophobic attack, and as we get talking to our people and making our voice heard in the social medias and on various media platforms, we've been engaging to say that this xenophobic attack against foreign nationals should stop. But in-house, I've written a few articles that I used to address our nationals, and I encourage them and say, listen, as much as we are campaigning for the nation South Africa or the country South Africa to see us as who we truly are and not as who we are labeled to be, we also should not find ourselves being caught on the wrong side of the law. If there is any of our national that is engaging on activities that is against the law of South Africa, they should know that they do not have the support of the Nigerian community. We are against Nigerians indulging in activities that undermines the norms of our society. We cannot tolerate hearing that a Nigerian is running a kind of brutal that harbors kids and amateurs and things that are not acceptable in the society. And our name, Nigeria, is mentioned. So we're against such activities and we are campaigning against it. And every now and then when we indulge with our people, we call a meeting and our people come together. We use that as an opportunity to speak to them, to discourage them from finding themselves in these kind of activities. But you know, people have their own mind. That is the reason why we say that when you find a person in a crime, do not tag the nation or the country that the person is coming from with that crime. It is an individual decision to engage in such kind of activity. It was not collectively agreed by the country that one of us must go and represent us in crime. No country sends out their national to go and commit crime for them. So we are discouraging it, and we are standing and we keep saying that we are discouraging our nationals from getting involved in crime in South Africa.
Okay. Madam, would you like to add on that?
Yes, thank you very much. Interestingly, part of what we're also doing as Nigerian Community Western Cape is to consciously rebrand Nigerian. And for the first time in the history of our community, Nigerians have actually come forth to the media. It wasn't like this. People go on, we read these things, negative things about Nigerians, and we've not, as a community, taken the bold step to come to the media and say, look here, guys, you've said this, it's like this, but we think it's not all true about Nigerians. We've been able to do that. And then secondly, we're also challenging our Nigerians here that are, living within the ambit of the law and going about their businesses legally, to say, look here, guys, it's not time to think, okay, they're just talking about Nigerians that are doing drugs, it's none of my business and all of that, We're all part of it, as he has said. If an oil stains this finger, it would definitely rub off on the other finger. So it's a call, like a challenge now. If you know that you're doing anything good and legitimate within South Africa as a Nigerian, you don't have to, shy away when they talk about these things. For example, there was a doctor bust in Danone. Now, do not think that it was just one doctor out there. You as a legitimate, you as the one that is not having a documentation issue, what is your stand towards this? How have you, out of the 40 of you come together to say, look here, in as much as this is a documentation issue, this is what we stand for. We've been saving lives in this country. It is not true that we have fake Nigerian doctors, or this one in particular, this was how it went, and it wasn't true. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. So I think we owe ourselves that responsibility to come forth to actually say what it is. If the media cannot take it a step further to give us a balanced information, then we owe it as a duty to go out there and do it.
And in addition to that, as what we've been doing as a community to try and make sure that our nationals are good ambassadors of Nigeria in South Africa, we had to identify the fact that the challenges here is scarcity of opportunities. So we've introduced to our community a kind of skill development program. And we are encouraging that some of our nationals who have no skill that will make them to be gainfully employed should indulge into skill acquisition program that we have to introduce. So we've partnered with few institutions, to mention a few, an organization called All World. They are into marine welding, they train people for marine welding. And we are in talks with an organization called, okay, their name is not on my memory now, but we've engaged them and they're willing to partner with us to get our people trained. In Nigeria, a lot of people survive on their own as entrepreneurs. You find Nigerians that are clothes makers and they live and train their family to university level from there without indulging in any crime. So we are telling our people, if you think you can be good in clothes making, we have people that are willing to train you to be a clothes maker. We've encouraged our community members that we have some people who are good with woodwork. If you think you have nothing doing, instead of going to indulge in crime, we have people that can train you in woodworks, and you can be gainfully employed. You can make a living for yourself. And this particular initiative is going to massively improve how our people survive here, as opposed to taking to the street and living life off the street. We are encouraging that they engage into meaningful means of livelihood.
But what are the existing consequences that you've put in place for those rotten potatoes?
Anyway, as the case may be, the country has a law. We are in a country where law is upheld. So those who fall victim of crime are dealt with by the ambit of the law.
All right. If you say Nigerians are good ambassadors here in South Africa, what is your take on some Nigerians that came out to embarrass their president during his recent state visit?
Well, this is South Africa, and we have freedom of expression here. It's a democratic society, and the group of Nigerians who came out is not a representation of all Nigerians to begin with. And then two, we have various Nigerians came out that day based on their various political views. We have extremists, we have conservatives and progressives. So that's just part of their expression. And I don't think it's criminality per se. It's just an expression, you know. That's
And you know, every country has their own challenges politically. And Nigeria has their own fair share of political challenges. And these individuals must have felt this is an opportunity for them to express themselves, having in mind that there were different media houses there that day, and they needed their voices to be heard. You know, so they took advantage of that opportunity to come out that day and express themselves in the way that they consider suitable to them. But so that I would not ascribe to as crime, you know, but it is a freedom of expression, as much as it is embarrassing to the president or to Nigeria as a country. But those individuals would think it is their right to express themselves because there is something they are agitating for.
Yes.
But couldn't you have waited to deal with this matter in Nigeria, unlike embarrassing him in a foreign country?
I hear you. I share your view on it. But this could be Nigerians who actually live in South Africa. They live in South Africa and they may not even been going home for some time, but they share the plight of others who may have been agitating in Nigeria before now. And they said, okay, we've not reached the president in Nigeria, but now we have him in South Africa. Now that he's here in South Africa, we might as well add our voice to that of those at home.
So this issue of the president was not the only issue. We've had cases where this would happen to the governors, the senators, where they've been embarrassed. What's your say on that?
I must say that I'm aware of some of these issues where agitators or aggrieved Nigerians stand up to politicians when they find them outside Nigeria and they express themselves aggressively. Well, these things are the trends of today. You know, the bad governance that is experienced in Africa, it seems like it's getting to Africans. We see this happen in different places where non-Nigerians, other nationals as well, attack their politicians. These are ways different people express themselves differently. So I don't think it's something unique to Nigeria, but it is a recent trend in our continent. And I think it should send message as well to some politicians to say that people are beginning to hold them accountable in ways that they cannot imagine, and the way they carry out in their offices. They should be aware of what to face when they're outside the confines of their nation, their country.
All right. Thank you. We've reached the end of our show. We're going to leave you with the hashtag, not all Nigerians are the same. You can follow our social media pages on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at official CME TV. Thank you.